co-host, okay? So you hear me? You hear me, right?
Yes, I hear you. Hello, Amar.
Oh, you know some people, some participant there?
Yes, Amar Al-Sahri Rawi is here.
Oh, okay. So, okay, it seems that we have people joining, and we can start in a minute, Dr. Ash. And
okay, Dr. Fahad.
Dr. Ammar, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Such
Good
a
to hear
long
from you.
time.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very
Great
much.
to see you, and thank you for Dr. Ash for letting me in.
Yeah, that was so kind of her to accept our invitation. So we are glad to. So we have 1 minute before the like the actual meeting. You know, according to the American like punctuality, we have to start at 3, which is 10.
Wow.
I can see that 300 people joined, and I don't think Zoom will accept more than 300, which is okay because I have about more than 1,000 registrants. But the good news is that this will be recorded. It's already been recorded, by the way, and I hope you know, everybody will benefit from it. So I will start by introducing you, Dr. Ash. Okay, let's start. It's 3 p.m. I think it's 10 p.m. Iraq time now. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us in this live Zoom meeting. My name is Ahmed Kalam Fahad. I'm now a visiting scholars in the University of Kentucky. I'm from the University of Dakar, and actually this session has been coordinated by University of Dakar, people in the Career Center. And thank you for Dr. Ash for accepting the invitation to present something about a very important topic today, which is about turning your presentation or your research into persuasive international presentations, which is one of the topics I think many people here are having questions about. So let me introduce Dr. Ash first. But by the way, thank you very much for Dr. Ammar for joining us. Dr. Ammar is the cultural previous cultural, right, Dr. Ammar? Could you just you know, introduce yourself very quickly? Sorry, because I know you personally, but I don't know about you, you know, a lot about your career like before. Could you just simply introduce yourself very quick, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ahmed. I really appreciate the chance, and thank you for Dr. Ash. My name is Ammar Hassan, or Al-Sahrawi. I'm known here as Al-Sahrawi. I worked as an academic in Iraq in the medical field at Baghdad University Medical School, and I was at the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research as a deputy minister for 4 years for academic international relations, and then I served at the Iraqi embassy in Washington, D.C. as the cultural attaché. Now I'm back to my medical field in the U.S. for almost 6 years now. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Ammar. Thank you very much for joining us. I will go ahead now with unmute because some people are actually already unmuted themselves, just in case they forgot about that. Feel free.
Yes.
Yeah, feel free. Like, please just feel free to unmute yourself and talk at any time when you have a question or when you wanna, like, you know, tell us something. But you know, for the sake of convenience and making less noise, please unmute yourself.
Yes, you listen me, please. You listen me.
Okay, so I think I have unmuted everybody now, and okay. Yeah.
Yes, please, sir. We didn't know your name, please.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. We will start the session now, and I will introduce Dr. Jessica Ash, our presenter today. So please enjoy the presentations, and when there will be a time for question and answer. But if you have like something to tell us right now, just, you know, leave a message in the chat, and then we can proceed from there. Okay. Dr. Jessica Ash started her career by teaching the Korean Army soldiers in a rural town just south of the DMZ in 1991. She studied for her MA master partly in France, but also was teaching at the University of Hawaii or Hawaii. I don't know if I pronounce it well. She has actually a peer-reviewed book, Chapters on Holistic Supports of International Students. I actually read that chapter. It was actually mostly about supporting Iraqi students, international students in general, but also Iraqi students. That was a good publication I read for her. She was also the plenary for Alameda International Research Center Conference. Her research for that focused on curriculum and discovered that student-centered activities are most effective in producing competent graduates. She has also several initiatives, and she used to be, and she's actually still my friend, and we studied our PhDs together. And Dr. Ash, thank you again for accepting the invitations. The floor is yours, and I will be managing the participants in case any questions. So please feel free to introduce yourself and then share your screen after that and start the presentation. Thank you very much. Dr. Ash, you hear us?
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Ahmed, for that kind introduction. Thank you for organizing this. And thank you to TCAR University for also arranging this opportunity. I'm very honored to be here. I hope you enjoyed today's iftar, Ramadan Kareem. And Ahmed, it looks like people have already raised their hands, but I'll let you manage that. And so I will start the presentation and you can interrupt me when I make a pause, okay?
Yeah, please go ahead. I will be keeping an eye on that, and please feel free to start your presentation. If there is anything, I will let you know in the middle of that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much again for accepting the invitation.
My pleasure. Desktop 2. So I believe that maybe you see the presentation and okay, here we go. So please feel free to email me, and that is my LinkedIn identity, or profile. You're welcome to add me, and I can answer questions on a continuing basis. So every presentation is really about you. Your research will come and go, and in 2 years, you'll probably have more research. So make sure you're highlighting and remembering that it is really about you, in that if they don't like what they see, then they probably won't come back next time. So be aware of the persona that you're portraying. Today's presentation is turning research into a persuasive presentation. When you're giving a presentation, lead with the why. Why do the audience members care? I have witnessed so many brilliant researchers present literally just reading, and people fall asleep. So your research is not a presentation. The question is, why should people care? Why should people care about your research? There's an old adage or a proverb. People don't necessarily remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. So anyway, so I'm gonna always lead with why. And so you can use your research format as an outline for your presentation. Remember that the PowerPoint is a visual experience. the entire presentation is a visual experience. When I'm in person, I am connecting with people, I'm remembering names, and so connect with your audience. The slides are meant to elicit emotion or to spark a conversation. Attendees should enjoy their experience. And if you're just reading from a piece of paper, you're not connecting with your audience. So now some experts recommend a black slide because it's restful for the eyes, especially in times like now where we're online all the time. I'm going to show you different ideas from different experts, and at the end I have a reference page so you can go and look at those sources yourself. I don't have every slide as a black one, but I thought you should know that some experts do recommend it. So pick a theme of colors and remain consistent. Don't use red and blue and orange and yellow. And so I've chosen light blue with dark blue letters for today. Also, you'll notice I have some animations. Less is more. Somebody wants to come in, so I'll approve that, I guess. So too much is just too much. You know, one type of animation, one type of color background is good enough. So this is the format for many types of research. If it's not the format of your research, go with your format. This is just an example. Your title should have no less than 42 font. I chose this backdrop for this slide because you can see it's very hard to read. The #1 mistake of researchers is just putting hundreds and hundreds of words on a single slide, and it doesn't work.
Sorry, Jesse, go ahead. I am trying to mute people, trying to mute themselves.
Yeah, I understand. No problem, Ahmed.
Go ahead.
So your other text should be no less than 28 font. This is another rule that is employed by some experts. It's sometimes called the 5x5 rule, and it's sometimes called the 5x5x5 rule. So the first part of that is 5 words across or less. The second part of that 5 is 5 words down or less.
Sorry, Jesse, I think I haven't muted everybody, but still showing.
That I think I'm doing okay as long as people can hear me.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
And people are trying to be considerate. I know that.
Go ahead.
Trust me, if you crowd your slide with too many words, and if the thought in your head is, I have to get all my research on the slides, you're going to lose your audience. The presentation is about adapting that wonderful research, distilling it down into a presentation that you're going to connect with your audience. If you fail to connect to your audience, then your research is irrelevant. Someone will see your presentation and see your visuals, and if they're interested, they will go and read your research. Spend more time on your results and your analysis. People want to know what your methods were, but you don't need to spend a tremendous amount of time on them. So if my methods were, for example, observations in 2 urban middle school classrooms for 7 hours each, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on a Wednesday and a Thursday in March, And then the second one is semi-structured interviews with 2 teachers and a principal. Those words don't need to be seen.
حبيبتي أنا سمعت
You can
سمعني
simply say them, and you can have this as your backdrop. You can say, I observed 2 classrooms, and then people have an image in their head of the classroom. And I had semi-structured interviews with 2 teachers and a principal. This is a more powerful visual than a bunch of words. Ahmed, I can pause now for some questions if you'd like.
No, please go ahead. I think we will have some times for question and answer. I think the presentation looks so capturing. Please go ahead.
Okay, I trust you. So with that being said, as much power as your words have, the pauses in between your words have more power. Empty space, both visually and auditorily, is important for the participants to process the information. It is a huge mistake for beginners, and it's very, very common. Beginners will speak very quickly, and they'll just go brrrr, and nobody has any idea what you said. And then the other mistake is to fill silence with and both of those are very distracting. So try to control yourself in those regards. When you're choosing pictures, it is important, especially in a public venue, to note that your pictures have to be labeled for reuse. So I Googled middle school class, and then I clicked labeled for reuse. In this way, you won't get any trouble by any from any copyright laws or information. As I continue, please note my intonation. If you stress every word, then no one's going to pay attention because it's too much stress. Your intonation has to rise and fall. Also, if you're too quiet, then it's hard to listen. So to continue on, Dr. Haider Karim Al-Hamdani, who is the head of the Department of Scholarship and Cultural Relations at the University of Kufa, has graciously agreed to permit me to adapt a piece of his research into a presentation as an example for you. So I've introduced him first because really the presentation is about him. Then comes the title, Internationalization and Study Abroad, Challenges for Students. His question is, how do English for academic purposes programs or courses contribute to students' experiences? His objectives are to understand the necessity of EAP courses, highlight the primary barriers in establishing them, and finally, he has recommendations to overcome those barriers. So we're going to start with students' listening experiences as reported by their teachers. So teachers were surveyed from 5 universities for their impressions of the facility with which international students from countries as diverse as Italy, Iran, and Turkey comprehend listening to lectures delivered by delivered in English by Iraqi teachers. The engineering field is the most popular of the professors who responded to this survey. There were 100 respondents from the 5 universities, and you can see that the gender was equally divided, roughly, 48% and 52% female. So 40% of college students from this study are from abroad. And the important part about this is that learners are gradually showing reluctance to be part of these universities. And I'm going to tell you why. So 86% of respondents say that communication is essential for success. That may seem simple to understand, but you can see with those huge numbers why the communication is so important. And this, according to the study, this proved to be particularly important between peers. To quote one teacher, oral communication is integral, without which an individual cannot proceed. Within that context, dialect is one of the most significant barriers, as well as accent. International students get, this is another quote from a teacher, international students get no cooperation from peers. They fail to share their points of view. So the point is, we can't learn from them, and they can't learn from us. This is a serious inhibitor to internationalization. So here's your why. This situation poses a threat to Iraqi universities and students, isolating us from the world stage and the global market. The best solution that he found, that he posed or found, was English for Academic Purposes programs. These are also called IEPs, or Intensive English Programs, as well. So IEP and EAP, those are interchangeable. Paying salaries for these highly trained individuals is a problem, as well as the resources required for such programs. So the number one barrier is money. Not shocking, not a surprise. So business around the world is conducted in English because it's a common language. Millions and millions of people are doing business in India in English. Europe, many businesses, and this now includes Macedonia, they're all being done in English. And so you can see by the size of the globe that it is imperative that the English situation improves for the students. So now he has some recommendations. They should be affiliated with universities. So, sorry. He recommends immediate deployment of EAPs around the country. And they should be affiliated with universities. They require physical facilities as well as highly trained individuals to run and teach, to run them and teach. Unfortunately, foreign government travel warnings mean that universities are often not permitted to send their personnel. So independent contractors have to be hired, and they have to be compensated for that risk. So instructors in every discipline require confidence in their ability to teach their content via the medium of English. I would like to make a note here that this isn't my research. So I interpreted it as best as I could. I chose a subject that I'm familiar with, and Dr. Al-Hamdani did approve of it. But if there's anything about what's portrayed here that's not complete, that's because it's not my research. So curriculums of the EAP and the university departments need to adapt to one another for the benefit of the student. There cannot be a silo effect. And this mutual adaptation, it requires close collaboration, which requires physical proximity and an agile administration. One thing we're all learning these days is agility, flexibility, adaptation. I've certainly had to adapt all of my classes to going online and being interactive. So being agile and adaptable is very important in the upcoming generation. These are the references for Dr. Al-Hamdani's research. These are some of them. This is an abbreviated version. And if you have more questions, you're welcome to ask me, or I believe that his study will be published soon. So students come to Iraqi universities from non-English speaking backgrounds. And that's the conclusion of his research. And I'm wondering if there are any questions for his research. We'll get into presentation after we go through his research. So Ahmed, are there questions about the research?
No, everything is okay.
Okay. And again, every presentation is really about you. So put your contact information there. And I think I have, these are my references. It's David Phillips, How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint. He did a TEDx in Stockholm. It's he who prefers a black screen. All of these are just recommendations. Take what you want and leave the rest. Also, if you Google 5 by 5 by 5, you can get 100 different ideas of how to implement a 5 by 5 by 5. Now, the third part of that 5, I didn't go into, but they recommend only 5 slides. I have a hard time with only 5 slides, so I don't implement that part. So very briefly, this has been turning research into a persuasive and international presentation. And I'm happy to take your questions now.
So guys, if you have, gentlemen, ladies, if you have any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself and simply ask. Only if you have a question. You could just simply unmute yourself, because I have left that option for you. Let's see if we have in the chat, I think.
So,
go ahead. Please introduce yourself and start asking questions.
Me? Sorry, me?
Yeah,
me?
go ahead.
Okay, Nawzat Hassan Qadir from English department in the University of Bahrain. Well, thank you, the university, I think the University of Ziqar, am I right?
Yes, sir, yes.
Thank you for the university, thank you for Dr. Ahmed, thank you for Mr. Jessica. I don't know from which university. Most welcome.
Miami University in Ohio, Oxford
University. Well, I have 2 pointers. Well, the first one, the point that mentioned by Mr. Jessica about making the slides to be crowded. This is something quite academic. It is, not academic, not, let's say, educational to make the slides crowded, because if you do so, indirectly you put the students into a good sleeping.
Yes, you understood my first slide.
Since, I am the teacher teaching academic debate, One point of academic debate is that how to make PowerPoint presentations. You make the student is inside the class. If it's outside the class, you made the audience into a good sleeping. Why? Because sometimes, when the slides are very crowded, the people or the students or the audience in general will be busy by reading the slides. So they can read the slides more than the presenter or better than the presenter. This is the first one. The second, about the pictures, pictures can have a great role in the clarification, as English people say, pictures can speak louder than words. They can, or they also say a picture is equal to 1,000 words. But the problem is that sometimes there is no connection between the picture and let's say, the point, which is, introduced for the students. To me, I have seen this point in many, let's say, lectures, in many PowerPoint presentations. If you, let's say, mention something about this one, there is mismatch. There is no connection between the picture or the subject or the topic introduced in the slide. Thank you very much. I have nothing else, my dear.
Thank you, Nazan, for that question. You really reinforced a lot of what I said, and now I'm looking at the chat because I've put my presentation away and I can see so many questions. So there has to be a connection between the picture and the content. Of course, I didn't highlight that part. I thought that was kind of a given. And yes, the visual experience is intended to spark a conversation. This is about you connecting your research. So the point of the presentation is to connect with people. And if you don't do that, then you won't be asked back. So Nazad, I also teach debate. And in case you need this resource, I'm posting procon.org. You may already know it, but I use it a lot. And please connect with me in email or on LinkedIn, and I'd love to share resources about debate.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay, I think Jesse, we have Maha Rabah has raised her hand here.
Okay.
Yes, Maha, go ahead. You have a question? Yeah, I saw you raising your hand. Anybody, if guys, if you have any questions, feel free to, since we don't have a queue now, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask directly. Anybody has any question? So, Dr. Ash, you still have to continue with your presentation, right?
Okay, I want to share again. Shoot, all right, I covered up a screen. I'm going to share the screen again because some people are asking about the 5x5x5 rule.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. So
I'm going to share my screen and do what I can to re-demonstrate. So we're going to go from the current slide. So the 5x5, and then I put in parentheses the third 5, because some experts recommend only 5 slides, but I don't. It depends really on the subject matter. So
go ahead, Lucy. I'm trying.
The 5x5 rule is 5 words across the page or less. And Nazad agreed, and he made the point that people just fall asleep. And you'll notice you can hear a sound with that one. You can also include sound effects. And if people want to know how to do this part, I can play around with my presentation and show them how to insert animations and things like that. So it's 5 words across. And 5 words down.
May I ask you, sorry, just a friend, may I ask you guys to please mute yourself? I'm actually keep muting everybody, but I see some who are unmuted between now and then. So please keep your audio muted unless you have a questions or you want to comment or add something. Thank you. Go ahead. Just.
So that's just a short review of the 5x5 rule, as people were asking. And I'm going to unshare if I can figure out how. And because that was, I want to be able to see the chat. I want to be able to talk to whether it's Maha or Nazad or who else has questions. Hello, Salwan.
Anybody has a question? I see Maha still raising her hand. So Miss Maha or whoever, would you like to have questions, or I can just simply lower your hand? Okay, I lowered it. It seems that maybe by mistake.
Okay.
You have a question, or that's okay. Basika Kakaula, you have a questions? Sorry if okay. She just muted and unmuted again. That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Ash. Continue.
Okay. We've had a good question here.
Sorry, we have Shamal Hamad. Shamal, you have a question?
So while we're waiting,
Yes,
oh, go ahead, Shamal.
hello, ma'am, and hello, Mr. Ahmed.
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question about that. You talked about told us to don't take much time for methods, and just talk about much in result and data. You say that, but if we don't show the information how we to data collection and coding and the ways which way we using, I think so. It is, if you're showing the result and the data, it's not much be clear about the audience, because it is a paper or is a research which we presented. It's not a lecture for a student. It's for some prof and academic audience. It's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Shamal. And especially, he's making a good point. Now, I didn't say don't put your methods. I just said don't spend more time than is necessary on them. And I understand.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You said don't spend much time in methods.
Don't spend more time than is necessary. But let me finish. Hang on one second, Shamal. Especially in the quantitative sciences, if you have a lot of quantitative data, the method that you use it has bigger implications than, say, for qualitative researches. I'm primarily a qualitative researcher, so it's pretty easy for me to say I observed 2 classrooms for 3 days and a total of 24 hours. That's a little easier. I certainly respect, Shamal, that somebody with a very complicated research would need to spend more time on the methods to ensure people can understand the results. But just always be aware in the back of your head, Shamal, that they came here for the results. And if during the results they have a question about your methods, that's actually better, because you would rather have somebody ask a question than for you to just keep talking. And if you still disagree, I'm open to that as well.
Shamal, is that okay?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. It's clear. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome. You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much for your question. I see Mohammed Sabah. You have a question?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Hi, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Mohammed Sabah from Clay University in Erbil. I'm teaching in the architectural department, College of Engineering. And I have one question, just please. What do you, for Jessica, which kind of color do you prefer for the background? Is it the white or the black, or which one do you say?
That's a really good question, Mohammed. The colors should coordinate. You shouldn't have like a yellow background with orange letters because that would be too close in color and it would be very difficult to see. A lot of people just use red and white because it's so easy to see the differences. Now, some people, and I have done this before too, I'll have my title in red letters, but then the rest of my content on a slide would be in black. I encourage everybody to play around with what feels right for them. I do sometimes use a completely black background. I'll ask you guys, how did you feel with the black background? Was it relaxing to your eyes? Because I can tell you that I'm looking at my computer 10 hours a day now, and all of the lights just, at some point, everything becomes a blur. So
I have a note. So when for a few years when we had the teaching method workshops on how to be a teacher, the teachers he was from UK. He told us you have to use white always. Yeah, it's good to use white always.
Mohammed, before we go switch to your other question, let me answer. Jesse just asked questions, and for me, I think black is my favorite for screen, my favorite color for my screen background.
But mostly,
even my,
I read about that because I'm an architect and I hear mostly about colors, and most of the people they said you have to use white. You have to go ahead with white. Oh, I'm just sharing my concept with you. I mean, you are the expert, not me, in this kind of presentation. And thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
yeah, so I'm going to show us. I just made a little tiny slide that I'm going to show. So the point of my statement was you should use complementary colors and you shouldn't use 30 colors, whether it's animations or noises, like there was a little breeze that came in with some of my slides. Too much is just too much. So to show you, there are no hard and fast rules about what to do, but this is yellow with orange and you can't see it. So while orange and yellow are complementary, that doesn't help us because you can't see it. I would also not make every slide a different color. That's not cohesive. It doesn't look like one presentation. It's jumpy. It's kind of all over the place. I would just pick a theme. People tend to really like blue and they feel an affinity and a calmness with blue. I've never done one in pink. I have to say I've never made a presentation in pink. I often use my university's PowerPoint. Ahmed, do universities in Iraq have a PowerPoint template?
Yeah, maybe Dr. Ammar can answer this. Usually we are still, you know, we only have the logo sometimes, right, Dr. Ammar?
Yeah, it's always preferable. I agree with Dr. Ash that you put the logo of where you belong to, like a university. We are talking here on an academic setup.
Yes.
So one formality, one theme, the logo maybe in the top, at the bottom, but keep that so people would always remember from what perspective, from what location you are talking from. So I agree with that. And I hope the Iraqi universities will do that also through their university or maybe their college logo.
Yeah, I actually saw in my, for example, when we were students at the University of Cincinnati, they have a specific page for students, graduate students, and all students to have access to the format of the PowerPoint, and PowerPoints where they can use them for their official presentation, just, you know, to keep the formality, which was mostly white and red, to reflect the logo, the you know, the motto of the university.
Certainly, I know Dr. Ash is trying to start from scratch, as we say, and giving her ideas of how to put the slides and in what format. Otherwise, yeah, I agree with you, going into more depth and to be more formal and more informative, more interactive, actually. I would rather maybe go through formalities through that university or college, and at what subject you will do the research and to what audience, at what platform at the end. And through all that, you may end up in having one or two or three choices, and probably some people who are in a higher position would rather select one for you. This will be more informative as far as I can see it. But I know in Iraq things are more flexible sometimes, but sometimes they are less flexible. I would rather go with more flexibility in that, but keeping this general idea of formality of how the slide will look like.
Good.
Yes, I did not use my university's logo today because I don't represent my university today. But I will often just have the logo. Miami University and other universities here often have these really elaborate templates with lines and logos all over the place. I think that's too much. So I don't use anything but the logo. And to go back to what Shamal was talking about, coordinate your colors with your university. That would look very cohesive and very professional.
I see some one has just raised his hands. Muhammad, are we still accepting questions, Dr. Ash?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not in a hurry at all. So it's really funny. There are a couple of, oh, and if you don't have a template from your university, it's easy to copy the logo. I just control copy the logo and put it in there. That's not good enough for publication, but certainly for a PowerPoint, just copying your logo is easy enough. And Mohammed Sabi is saying that, Doctor, you didn't explain what you meant by 5 by 5.
He's angry.
Thank you, Mohammed. And it is important. So no more than 5 words across, no more than 5 words down, so 5 times 5 is 25. So no more than like 25 words per slide. But the other point about that feeds into Haider Hassan Abdullah's question, and that is, he says he thinks the animations are unnecessary. I would say if you have 25 words on a slide, you want the first line or two to be present, and that's it. And then you want the next group of words to be present. And then you want the next to be present. Otherwise, nobody's listening to you. It's kind of like what Nazad was saying earlier. People are just going to do this. What'd you say? So I think a few animations are very relevant and they keep the visual changing all the time. Well, not like a fireworks show, but you want the visual to change. I'm talking about India, so people are looking at India. And then I talk about Europe, so people are looking at Europe. And I think it's important for the visuals to change, but not like a fireworks show. Oh, we have 2 Mohammed Sabis. Oh yeah, he says he's just laughing. I get it. I know you're laughing. That's why I'm laughing. I love this participation. And Amar, you brought up a really good point that some of you guys have seen me present and I'm never on stage. And if you've seen any of the videos of me presenting in other countries to thousands of people, I am in the aisles. I'm up the aisles. I'm introducing myself to people. I'm smiling at people. I'm connecting with the audience. And that is where so many researchers fail. And I mean, these are brilliant researchers. I'm not taking anything away from a brilliant researcher, but a brilliant researcher who does this. Today we're going to talk about my architecture.
اوكي
Oh, I want to okay, so we have an expression.
وقفت الاستماع يمكن.
So,
Go ahead.
let me just animate that person. Okay. So,
Assistant Professor Dr. Nada Yasin Qasim Ya.
we have questions in the so if you have a question, Jesse, I'm accepting questions from people who are raising their hands. Is that okay?
Yeah. Is
So
it okay if I chat with other people? Oh, we've had a really good question a couple times. I've been watching it in the chat, and this time it's from a person whose name is in Arabic. So I'm unfortunately not yet able to pronounce that. But how can we motivate our students? Boy, and then Ahmed, I'll let you go on to ask the other people who are asking. So next week, I'm going to talk about the benefits and challenges of the student-centered classroom. This is how I motivate my students. I am not at the front of the classroom. Nazad teaches debate. So I'm going to guess that he'll have two people or maybe two groups of people, pro up front and then con up front. And they are the center of the classroom. They've done their research. They're doing the debate. And then the students are asking questions. And I'm a facilitator. I motivate my students because they are talking 80% of the class, and I'm not exaggerating. If they're not talking, I'm asking them questions. So anyway, thank you, Huawei. Y9 Prime. Okay, go ahead, Ahmed.
So we have so many people, I mean, several people just raised their hands. We have Atiaf Hassan. Are you having questions, Atiaf or Atiaf?
Yes, Atiaf.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Jessica and Dr. Ahmed.
Hello.
Atiaf Hassan from University of Diyala. I have one question concerning silence and the pauses. You have mentioned, Dr. Jessica, you have mentioned something about pauses during presentation, right?
Yes.
So sometimes we fill such pauses or gaps with which is called gap filler. How to reduce such an occurrence of those pauses or the gap fillers? What are the procedures that we can follow in order to diminish such things? And thank you.
Thank you for your question, Atiaf Hassan.
Thank you.
I just said I broke my own rule. So it takes a lot of practice. It takes like personal training. And I have found that the primary culprit, let's say, for filling those pauses is my own fear, my own anxiety. This is also a concept that is common in the business world. You want to give your presentation, but you want silence, because if you are silent, then the person whom you're pitching to is processing the information. So it's really important that you let them process. And I keep in my mind, I'm always thinking about my audience, who's in it, and I'm trying to connect the information to them. And so I keep it foremost in my mind, what do I think this person is processing right now? What do I think this person is confused about right now? And if I keep those questions in my head, that can keep my mouth shut. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. I have another question from Mohamed Rubai. Would you like to ask your questions, Mohamed? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Yes, I have a question. Thank you for this lecture. My question is like concerning the transitions and effects. It is necessary to apply the transitions and effects on the slides. What's your view? What's your point of view concerning that?
You're asking from my perspective or Ahmed's?
No, I ask you both because both of you have a good experience. So I ask you, both of you,
I'm just
what's your point of view concerning, because
the dialogue, Jesse. You are the important person here. Just go ahead.
Oh, wow.
Both of you, thank you for this lecture.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Ahmed, you should come tell my daughter that if I'm that important. Okay, so let me talk.
Sorry for interrupting, because you know sometimes when I'm applying the transitions and effects, I see the presentation to be more impactful and more informative. So that's why I ask you this question.
So,
Okay.
so I'm going to show you a couple of slides and go over them again because we've had several questions about the pauses or the transitions and the animations. And someone also asked a question if we can send them the presentation. And so I'll talk to Ahmed about that. My presentation has lots of layers, so it's kind of hard to save it as a PDF, but Ahmed and I can figure out how to do that. And we can post the presentation or email you. I'll email you personally. So email me, and then whether it's in PDF or PPT format, I'll send it to you.
Okay,
but
many
send
thanks.
me an email.
Okay, many thanks. I will.
Yeah, my pleasure. So right now we're looking at transitions and animations. If I have both slides up at the same time, it's not as impactful if I say businesses around the world, or sorry, business around the world is conducted in English because it is a common language. If I start with instead, in India, business is conducted in English, even though they have 126 native languages, because it's a common language. In Europe, the EU runs on English, much to the chagrin of the French, but because it's a common language. And business around the world is conducted in English, and I can't change that. I can give English to the world as free as possible, but I can't change the way the world is. Do you see the difference in the power with the animation?
Yes.
So let me go to the next slide. This slide has a lot of words on it. It has a lot of words. And if I put them all up there at the same time, I can guarantee you everyone in the audience is going,
yes.
And they're not listening to me. They're not engaging with me. They are not tracking me. And I want them tracking me. And I also, it takes time to input or to absorb all of this information. So I'm going to say, Dr. Alhamdani has some recommendations. And the first one is the immediate deployment of EAPs around the country. That's no easy task. But instructors in every discipline require confidence in their ability to teach their content via the medium of English. I think you can feel a different sense of power with the second approach. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to unshare my screen again.
Okay, I have a question for Ali Saad. Would you like to ask a question, Ali Saad?
Yeah, finally.
Sorry, I kept hovering around the parts. So many people in the screen, sorry.
Not a problem, Dr. Ahmed. Dr. Jessica, many thanks for your lecture. I'm architect Ali Saad, which I'm assistant architecture, assistant teacher in Department of Architecture at Muthanna University. I'm taking here an other point of view and taking your vote or your participation in it to understand what is your opinion about it. Well, our students in architecture department or in architectural departments in Iraq have another way to react with us, which are they are used to discuss a lot their ideas. So they are more talking than sleeping in department and lectures. So I'm tried or used a way that it's more designed to let this talking is more useful in lecture. So I'm always take the students, 3 students or 4 students in every set to choose the colors, the sequence of lectures,
Great.
and then try to make them to choose the colors. And because our students are more feminine than men, they are, you can imagine, it's always about pink. So yeah, purple, pink, and sometimes blue when it's get serious. But is it good to make the students participate in choosing the colors, the theme, and the main frame of the lecture, not the content of the lecture, the main frame which is designed, because they are architects. They try to do their best to show themselves to us. Is it good in this way? I'm feeling that I'm trying to get your opinion about it, to see if is it acceptable, or is it motivate in this way more than the normal way.
I love what you do. And I think your name is Ali Saad. I hope
Yeah.
Okay. So anytime students have input in anything, it motivates them. And if it's only during your class time, you can have a pink slide and then a purple slide and then an orange slide. Anytime you involve the students, you motivate them. Anytime you get them talking. And I'm going to do another session on that. The focus of next week's is the student-centered classroom. But that's exactly what you're doing, Ali, is you're motivating them by getting them, you're interacting with them. And, you know, I'm typing whatever I can in the chat. I'm trying to interact as much as I can, because it's about the connection. It's not about, if you don't connect your research to the people, your research goes away. I don't care how awesome it is. And I've had so many people say, but really, I need to read my research. And I say, okay, go ahead. You know, but I really think that this is an opportunity to connect your research to people. And if they want to read it after that because they're motivated, great. And if you don't explain for 20 minutes about your methods, and then in your results, somebody sees something about your result and they say, hey, wait, I have a question about your methods. That's much better. The information come from questions. It's a much better way to get information out there. So thank you, Ali Saad.
Thank you very much.
So
thank you, ma'am.
So, thank you. You have another questions, or?
I see one from Fadhila Salman.
No, I finished.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I have many friends who are architects in Iraq. I have, there's somebody out there from University of Baghdad, and that's where Venus Suleiman is, I think. And I have lots of friends around Iraq who are architects. And I taught a language of architecture class when they were here.
Really?
Yeah. I have a fond affinity for that field because essentially it's semiotics.
That's right.
System.
May I get your email in the chat so I can connect with you later?
Yep. I'm going to type it in here. Some people are putting their email address in the chat. I can't write down everybody's email address. So please, and then that gives us an opportunity to get to know each other a little better.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ali Saad. One question that's really pertinent right now is about online learning. And it comes to us from Fadhila Salman. And she's at the University of Baghdad. So online learning right now, obviously education changed like that around the world. And what we're finding, so my classrooms are very interactive. Every single person in my room talks. And so, for example, they're coming to class and they have read an article. And when they come to class, I have reviewed what articles they read. And so I'll pick a few. If there are 300 articles about COVID, I kind of stop talking about COVID for a while, but I'll pick something that's different. And I'll say, Osama, tell me about that article. It was so interesting. And then they start talking, and then students ask questions of that person. And so the idea of online learning, there are some differentiators that are coming to the forefront right now. And one of those is interactivity. The teachers who say, your next 4 lectures are posted online. Post your homework. They are getting really bad reviews, but beyond that, they're not keeping the connection alive. And so the material is kind of falling between the cracks because there's no connection. The people who have interactivity are doing a couple of really important things. First of all, it's the only way we can stay connected right now. Connection is so important to me right now in this very difficult time. It's certainly very important for anybody who's 18 years old, who might be living in another country. So the connection, and during those classes, I'm able to talk about things like resilience, perseverance. We are in this together. All of us in this room today, we are in this together. And that's so motivating for me. So yeah, online learning is very successful for me and for my department because we were very interactive. One other thing that we're doing is we have a deliverable. I run an hour-and-a-half class. We have a deliverable every half hour. And usually it's a video recording. So the students are in the room and we're talking, and then at some point, sometimes they have to leave the room to make their recording, but they're recording a video of them reading. So they're still practicing this speaking. They're still practicing. So I'll have 3 deliverables in an hour-and-a-half period. And so this very interactive type of online learning is, not only is it successful for us, we have a lot of feedback from our partners around the world that it's very important to them, because now some of our students went home, and we have students in Peru, in China, in Guatemala. So the connection is been very, very important. As Ahmed said, you can tell from the chapter I wrote about holistic support. Support is very important. People can't learn if they're too upset about the world events. So I spent a lot of time on concepts such as resilience, and we're in this together.
Okay, Jesse, thank you. If I know so many questions are from participants, so I just, if you allow me, just to urge participants to please ask questions about the topic. I know, you may ask about different, let's keep it focused here. And many students are asking about different questions. People are asking about the certificate. So I think we have a question from, before Dr. Ammar, I think we have Jasim, who keeps raising his hand. Jasim, you have any question?
Yeah, I have a question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, hi everyone, and hi to Jessica. My question is, do you think that the slide, PowerPoint is sometimes really boring, especially in the communicative approach?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, do you think that the slide, PowerPoint is sometimes really boring, especially in the communicative approach? You know that my job is with the secondary school.
With lower level, I would never use a PowerPoint with children.
No, I'm not. No, I don't mean children. No, secondary school. The guys, those are before the college.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, I was misinterpreting you.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, so PowerPoints they can be very boring. It is the format that's common in conferences. If I was with you in person and I was talking to Ahmed about this before. I wanted each person to have certain things to like physically touch. I would be moving in and through the aisles, and I would be helping. It would be more of a workshop. It's hard to have a workshop in this format, but I'm certainly trying to connect with as many of you as I can. So I think PowerPoints can be extremely boring, especially if you're just standing at the front of the room saying, do you see that word? That word is very important. Yeah, I think that I totally agree with you that they can be irascibly boring.
Okay. Dr. Ammar, you have a question, please? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's not a question rather than, well, Dr. Ash already talked a lot about it. One of the attendants were asking about probably having more interaction from the students. And from that perspective, I just want to say something very important, which has already been covered maybe by Dr. Ash, is how much important for the speaker, the lecturer, the presenter, whoever you can say, to study the chemistry of the collectivity, I mean, the collection of people whom he's talking to, and then build that connectivity too. So whatever it takes, through whole my life, whatever I'm talking to, through whatever kind of people I'm talking to, it depends, of course. Students, academics, non-academics, diplomats, maybe somebody else. I used to have gathered like what kind of language and interaction and themes that can bring them into more motivation. And through that, of course, we can build better understanding of the topic. Whatever it takes. I know this is maybe not an academic setup, but I remember just one very funny story that one day I was in Mississippi and I was told maybe 2 nights before to talk to representatives from many Mississippi area universities. And they chose a topic about challenges and hardships and outcomes of the higher education in Iraq. And for me, and I was told that you're going to talk about that during a time where they're going to serve lunch in between many topics of lectures, you know. That setup is different basically from the regular setup where you have them sitting in a room and listening and talking and maybe looking into a big screen. So I end up maybe just putting a video with the sound of our very known musicians like George, and then using some pictures of the history of Iraq and the culture. And first of all, I put the story in my mind, what I'm going to talk, and then I put the pictures, and through that, I took them through a journey, which works very well because remember, it's a different setup. So yes, I agree, and I would like for everyone in Iraq, whether a lecturer, whether a high school teacher, whether an academic, an administrator, to go out of formality and feel what the attendants look like, their age, their background, their gender, their understand, whatever it is, and then build from that the interaction. And from that, by the way, you can lead the topic. The time you feel that they start to feel boring and they maybe like start to feel sleepy, they start to talk to each other. This is an alarming to you that you need to change something, either build more interaction, either make a joke, either make a fun of something, and then bring them back to the screen or to you basically. And I would also add here how much important is the body language, which Dr. Ash talked about. Yes, the tone, she talked about the tone, which is very important, but then even your body language, the way you look to them, the way you signal, the way you maybe sit up or stand or maybe go around, if it's a small room, small space, that will also bring them back to the topic. Thank you very much.
Exactly, Dr. Ammar. Dr. Ash, if you just let me add here, because I think I must say something, because I think, you know, this topic that Jesse you have chosen is really important. And as you can see, Dr. Ammar and I share the same idea. I think public speaking skills or the ability to stand in front of so many audience and present is one of the weakest, I would say, soft skills that we can see in Iraq. We have so many great people, great researchers, great scholars with a great expertise, but you can see that sometimes there is less skills. There are not like enough, let's say, capabilities to present well. And I think the reason is not because they are not well prepared, but the reason is because the culture of public speaking or the culture of soft skills is not very much taken into considerations in our higher education institutions. And that's why I actually presented a Zoom live meeting a few days ago about how important professional development and continuing education. I know research is very important and it can, show our universities and maybe try to include them in the international rankings. But what we really need is like those soft skills, problem solving, time management, and those soft skills that really can help our leaders as well as the employees like succeed in their work and their life. So thank you for the intervention, for the comments and the intervention.
Ahmed, you brought up a really good point. And so one of the things that was briefly mentioned at the start is that I am supposed to come there, and I was supposed to come last October, and then I was supposed to come in March, and now it's been delayed again. But I will make it. I will make it there. And so.
Let's hope COVID-19 is over, hopefully.
Yes. And there is a culture, Amar, of teachers at the front of the room in a lot of places. And, like in China, you'll have one teacher and 100 students, and the students are never supposed to speak. And it's no wonder that their students don't want, that they want to go to college abroad. And so I'm focused on the people that are in the room. And, here's an example that, I'll go into more details next week, but art history teacher, a US art history teacher. So this isn't against any other, culture. This is a US professor. The US people are still guilty of this. Anybody who is smart and knows they're smart and has a doctoral degree has a tendency to want to be in the center of the room. And they should fight that tendency. But so this art history teacher said to me, well, everybody knows the only way you can teach art history is by showing hundreds of slides in a dark room. And I thought, wow, I fell asleep in that class. So if I am to teach art history, not that I'm able to at a university. I love art history. It's a passion of mine, but I don't have a degree in it. But I have taught children. And what I'll do, like in high school, for high school students, I'll give them the format and say, here's a piece of art. Here's who created it. Here's when it was created, its name, and some important features about it. So maybe if it's a painting, maybe it's about the diagonality of it. Or if it's a sculpture, it's about the muscles that the sculptor was able to sculpt. So each of 100 students will get a different piece of art, and they have to memorize that piece of art. And then the class time is spent with all of those students teaching each other. And by the end of the class period, each student has to learn about 50 new pieces of art from each other. It's a messy classroom, and it takes a long time to get used to that mess. But people aren't falling asleep. They're struggling with the information. They're working with the information, and they are becoming the experts. Because it doesn't matter what's in my head. It matters what is being built in their brains. And they're not building anything if they're just listening, because they're probably not listening.
Okay, Jesse, I think thank you very much for the presentations and for the so many tips and pieces of advice for our faculty community, even students. I have seen so many people joining, even from, I have seen people from outside the country, from Algeria, from Egypt. Unfortunately, we were not able to accept all the participants because of the limited capacity of Zooms to up to 300, but actually we have about 2,000 registrants. But,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, but the good news is that we are going to hopefully release this for everyone to watch. And thank you for you, Dr. Ammar, for dedicating this time to attend and for the tips you have provided. Jesse, I think, is there anything else you wanna say before we wrap up and say goodbye?
Yes, right now I'm typing in the chat room. Apparently I can type to the people in the waiting room that I'm very sorry that the limit was 300. I'm really moved by so many people who want to attend this. And so, Ahmed, I'm happy to repeat it, and maybe we can use another platform if one is better. So let me type, I'm sorry about the limit to the people in the waiting room. But I am really humbled by the number of people that wanted to show up today and by the quality of the people. You guys asked some brilliant questions, whether it was Ali Saad or Atiaf or Nazad, Maharaba, Shimal. So many people asked some
You
amazing
need a
questions.
course in Arabic pronunciation, Jesse. I can give you some discount for that if you want.
Yeah, I appreciate. I can learn from your children, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, Fatima is teaching me. So thank you everybody for attending. And if you want to repeat this subject, I can check my LinkedIn or my Facebook for next week's, because Ahmed's not in charge of that one.
Thank you very much again. And of course, you have another opportunity to meet with Dr. Ash, I think, in 2 days. This is all for today. Thank you again for everybody, for those who attended, for Dr. Ash, for Dr. Ammar, for all the people who asked questions. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the, for the rest of the night in Iraq. You have suhoor, I think. We are still fasting. We have about 4 more hours to eat. So I'm still, as you can see, I'm very hungry. Just you're lucky because I think you already have had your lunch. So thank you guys, and have a great day. Bye.
Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Shaden and Ali Saad and Mohammed Sabi, Wa'a Tarek. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for all you.